Hey everyone, my name is Kim Levinsky, owner and race director for Sasquatch Trail Runners. We put on trail parties in northern New Jersey and the Hudson Highlands of New York. Our goal is to welcome all peoples, paces, and ages to our events. So what you have in the following is our Q&A session for the Wild Goose. We had a Q&A on nutrition, hydration, Skratch labs, and the aid station. So this is the recording from that Zoom session. Unfortunately, I forgot to press the record button when it first started, so I'm re-recording the intro here. So on the panel, we've got sport dietitian Dina Griffin. She is the owner of the Nutrition Mechanic and chief fueling officer for Nutrition Mechanic. We've been partnered with Dina for a couple of years now. She extends an awesome discount to Sasquatters who use her services. She's an experienced ultra runner, has done hundreds and is crewed and paced hundreds, 200s, and 300s. So Dina is a great friend of mine, and she's got a lot of awesome information for you all tonight. Next is Kenton. Kenton is the Skratch representative for our area here in the Northeast. He is at pretty much all of our trail parties throughout the year. So if you come to our races, you'll see Kenton behind the Skratch table, dishing out some awesome Skratch hydration and super high carb, some chews, and the other products that they have in their lineup. And last up, we have Matty Klein. He is the aid station captain for the Wild Goose Trail Festival. He's also the aid station captain for our Squatchy Leftovers Trail Party in November. So Matty is at the helm along with Doug Wilson and Bob Maritzi. The three of them are captaining our aid stations, and between the three of them, they have well over 15 200-miler finishes and countless 100-mile finishes. So the aid station for Wild Goose is truly more of a 200-miler aid station rather than 100. It is an incredible spread of food and drinks and everything you can imagine, ranging from burgers to burritos to pulled pork quesadillas. This year we're going to have a few pizza ovens, be dishing out some pizza to our ultra finishers. It's going to be awesome. And that sums up the introductions for this Q&A session. Hope you enjoy the recording. All right, let's start with Kenton. Questions for Skratch. So first one, why don't you just tell us what is Skratch, the company, and a little bit about their products. We got hydration, super high carb, and maybe some of their other goodies they've got in their lineup.
Yeah, definitely. So for everyone who's not familiar with Skratch, we're a performance nutrition brand and hydration brand based out of the beautiful state of Colorado. We just focus on making products that taste good. Obviously, that's huge in the endurance sport or even sport industry as a whole. And then also ones that don't upset your stomach, because GI stress plagues tons of athletes, whether you're a long distance runner, whether you're just a weekend warrior. It's a huge issue in the nutrition world. So developed by Alan Lim. I'm sure some of you have heard of him because he's a huge name in the cycling world. But yeah, like the name implies, we essentially just make all of our products from scratch. So we try to use the most minimal amount of ingredients. We use all real fruit products in all of our hydration mixes and chews. So when you see the fruit on the front there, there's actually fruit powder in there, which is great. And like I said before, just kind of making everything from scratch. So super basic, meant to basically just replenish what you sweat out, what you work out, get everything right back into you with the least amount of ingredients possible. So Skratch was really designed because a lot of the nutrition products on the market tasted like cardboard. They weren't palatable. They were really difficult to kind of consume. So Alan came along and started making this, secret hydration mix in his garage. And, there was just such a demand for it. And it eventually developed into what Skratch is today. It was originally started with just the rice cakes and the hydration, but now, as you've seen, especially at Kim's races, and then hopefully some other races that you've been to, the product catalog has expanded pretty greatly. So we got the chews now. We have a high carb mix. We have an everyday hydration mix. We still have the classic sports hydration. So we're really kind of branching out and trying to cover and solve all of those nutrition problems for athletes as a whole. So obviously, a big one that everyone's been seeing is the high carb. I know Kim's used it extensively, especially on her long path journey, and I know hopefully a lot of other people in here also have used it. But yeah, that's a really cool product, and it's been a game changer for a lot of athletes. But yeah, high carb essentially. Maltodextrin is a huge fuel source in the nutrition world. It's basically a sugar that's derived from corn, but also different kinds of starch. And it's a fairly easy to consume carbohydrate just because it's water soluble. It dissolves pretty easily in water. It's very easy to drink. It's not solid. So that's pretty rad. But what makes the high carb different than other maltodextrin products on the market is we actually use something called cluster dextrin, which the way that I love to describe it is if you think of a choo-choo train going down the track, that would be maltodextrin. So at any point on that choo-choo train, one of those cars can break off and they can separate and they can essentially become, its own part, its own molecule. So that's definitely a faster burning molecule, and that's usually the reason why most athletes opt for maltodextrin. Cluster dextrin, I like to think of it like a wreath, like a circle with a bunch of ornaments on it. And basically when cluster dextrin hits your stomach, it's a slower breakdown. So all those different ornaments pop off, and then the whole circle of the cluster actually starts to break down. So it's a little bit of a slower burning carb. It's easier to take in larger quantities just because it is slower burning and it's not that huge rush of sugar right off the bat. So that's why it really is a draw for a lot of athletes. And a lot of people do have issues with mixing high carb. I know, Kim, I believe we had a couple questions about mixing high carb as well, just because it is a pain if you don't know how to do it correctly. And I'm sure a couple people have struggled with it before. So the best way I can describe to mix it, there are tons of different methods, but I think the easiest way to mix it would be filling your bottle halfway, throwing your allotted amount of scoops in, whether that be 2, 4, 6, or even 7. Some people put 20 plus scoops into a 500 ml bottle. So you can get kind of as crazy as you want with it, but having that half water level in your bottle just so that it has room to shake is the best way to get it to break down and not stay clumpy. The other surefire way for it to fully break down is to mix the night before. Prep your bottles the night before your race day, just so you're not scrambling in the morning, trying to get those, nutrition levels dialed in. Mix everything the night before, throw it in the fridge, and over time, it will break down. It will become more liquid-like. It won't be clumpy, and you can actually let high carbs sit in the fridge for up to 2 days, and it'll still be good refrigerated. So that's a huge pro tip. That's something that everyone at Skratch knows, and it's kind of a secret tip as well, that mixing it and keeping it overnight is definitely a huge key just to get it to fully break down. So that's big.
Awesome. Kenton, that's great. And I also want to say your hand motions were perfect, because when you were distracting super high carb, you went like this and it made like hearts appear on your screen. So it was really great.
Oh, really? Oh, I thought that was someone throwing it out there. So
it was awesome. So I would love to chat about the rice cakes. You came to our event on Saturday and we couldn't even keep them on the shelves. They were just flying off the shelves. You made some very gourmet rice cakes. I know we were experimenting for the Wild Goose to see if we could bring a rice cooker on the race site, and it does look good for us to do that. So can you tell us about the rice cakes and maybe like a short overview of like how do you make the rice cakes? What kind of rice do you make? How do you get recipes? Just fill us in on that.
Oh, yeah, of course. So yeah, I mean, the rice cakes were also kind of one of the first ideas that Alan had when he was supporting pro tour cyclists in the Tour de France. They needed something that was easy to eat, easy to grab out of their jersey that they were wearing, and just easy to unwrap, and just fast consumption of carbs was definitely the name of the game there. So he made this cookbook, which is awesome. If you guys don't have it yet, and you want to experiment with real food and get away from kind of the gels and the artificial stuff, the Feed Zone portable cookbook, which is on the Skratch site, you can use the Sasquatch discount on there and get 20% off. So you can hop on there and grab a cookbook, which essentially has, I think, 30 different kinds of rice cakes that you can make inside, which is super awesome. I'm sure Dina can chat a little bit more about the science behind nutritional aspects of rice and why it's so great for you as a carbohydrate. But rice is super easy to eat when you're on the go. It's tasty, and you can really make them savory. You can make them sweet, kind of any direction that you want to go. But what we were experimenting with at the race this past weekend was a blueberry, chocolate chip, and coconut rice cake. So you had a little bit of sweetness in there, added some lemon, so there was some acidity. There was a great kind of balance of all of those things that you would want when you are confused on what to eat, especially in an endurance event. I mean, we saw it a bunch at the Wild Goose, but even at all of Kim's races, athletes come up and they're kind of confused. What do I want to consume? Do I want something salty? Do I want pretzels? Do I want candy? So it's like you want to try to dial in something that can be palatable for any range of requests or even needs. So having that there, I think hit. Obviously, with rice cakes, the most important thing is the rice. So I brought it out as the prop, but this is the recommended rice, BOTAN, the Botan rice. So it's a extra fancy #1 short grain sushi rice. So you can find this at most Asian supermarkets. This whole, I think this is a 15-pound bag, is like $20. So it'll last you forever, and you can just make tons of rice cakes, throw whatever you want into them, and just kind of play with flavors and figure out what works for you. But real food is definitely a game changer for a lot of people, and I feel like it's almost taboo in a lot of the endurance world also, because people are so focused on gels and things that you buy from the store. But having something as simple as rice on hand, I feel like can change a lot for athletes. So super excited to experiment a little bit at Wild Goose with some of the different concoctions that we can cook up with aid station captain Matt over there. So
yeah, the rice cakes too. I want to mention, you made them so beautiful, and they were wrapped in that special foil and stuff. If you're doing this at home, it doesn't have to be pretty. You could throw it in a Ziploc bag. I know Kool-Aid's on here, and that's her signature, is the rice in the bag thing. So don't feel pressure to make it as beautiful as the Skratch man does, Kenton. So, definitely. All right. Kenton, that was great. I think those covered the Skratch questions that we had.
Cool.
So, Dina, you're up. You ready?
Yes, let's go for it.
All right, we had some nice questions that came through during registration. So Maria had a couple. I know she's on the Zoom tonight. This was a great question. How to stop fingers from swelling during hot, humid weather and long distance races. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, it's a common issue to have swelling in the extremities. And I know Thor talked a little bit on this in your last week Zoom. So that's a good listen. And I think Maria, she addressed the exact same question from you, but for you, thinking on maybe a couple other, strategies is, I mean, we hope to not even get to that point where we experience the swelling. So there's like the prevention side. It can be really difficult when it is hot. We're out for, 10, 12, 30 hours at a time. Some of this is just like your body position with, hands are down sometimes, like your actual physical position of the arms and your fingers being down and gravity and all that. So I can't imagine running an ultra like this the whole time with your hands up in the air, but that can be like a temporary feeling of relief just to redistribute some of that fluid shifting that's occurring. So I have known some ultra runners that will spend like purposeful time with hands in the air and kind of stretches out the abdomen as well. But one thing that I do see often is like an over drinking of fluid that can contribute to the swelling in fingers. And it's just something to pay attention to, because I can't tell you exactly how much to drink. That's something you have to kind of figure out on your own, or work with someone like me to figure out more closely. But over drinking, meaning drinking a lot of plain water or very diluted electrolyte drink in excess of what your body needs, that could, contribute to some of that swelling. But some of it's pretty natural, and once you experience it, and anyone else can share their stories if they'd like in the chat, or Matty with your extensive experience too, with ultras, just like what do you do to try and stop that? I mean, it's kind of hard to undo it completely and restore to like your normal finger size. But certainly paying attention to fluids and taking breaks, to just rest your feet, rest your extremities, that can help for a little while. But I don't think I have a magical answer to completely prevent it in all cases.
I think the
Yeah.
good thing is that it goes down pretty quickly after you're done. You know, I know my fingers get really swollen. I try to take my rings off in some instances if I can remember that. But once the activity's over, that kind of goes down quickly, at least in the hands. As far as feet, Kimmy, your experience as well. Every time I stop, I try to make a point to put my feet up. Even if it's a trail nap, I sleep with a bit of an angle where my feet are on the up. Really, really helps a lot. And that comes from the experience of doing it the other way, and that is sleeping on a downhill or sleeping in a car, catching a couple winks and the feet are down and my feet just absolutely throb. It does not help whatsoever. So, and Kimmy kind of knows, I make a big deal about how the car might be parked because I don't want it on an angle where I can't put my feet in an upright position.
Gotta be flat.
Yeah.
Gotta be pancake flat. I know too with trekking poles, when you're gripping your trekking poles, that's helped me with keeping swelling down, because a lot of times maybe late in an ultra you're doing more hiking, so your arms are not as high as it would when you're taking strides, but gripping the poles seems to help a little bit with swelling.
I think the other thing to add is this piece that I'm sure Kenton can pitch into as we talk a little bit more about the Skratch products. Or fluid consumption is like, do I have too much sodium, salt, or not enough? And that can be tricky to figure out in terms of our own response and how it manifests with swelling in extremities or like abdominal bloating and things that can happen. So that's one of those situations, I think, like the swelling can be from excess sodium in addition to that fluid piece, or perhaps, not enough sodium replenishment coming in and there's overconsumption of the fluids for water.
Awesome. Let's bounce back to Skratch. I probably should have asked this first for a better transition, but we had another question from Maria asking, what's the best way to combine super high carb and hydration sport, asking about the ratio for both of those.
Yeah, I don't know if Kenton, you want to add anything as far as like mixing the two or anything for ratio wise, if you'd want to add anything before I give my 2 cents.
I personally, I think ratio wise is completely up to the athlete. It just depends on your carb intake per hour and then also your sodium needs for the most part. Mixing though is super easy. You don't have to do anything different. I would probably, if anything, mix the high carb first in there, just so you can get it to fully break down and then throw the hydration in after. But honestly, you can toss them both in at the same time. But yeah, ratio wise, I definitely think it's athlete specific. That was my kind of input there.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly. What I would repeat is figuring out what your target for the most part. I mean, if we're talking for 100 miles, going to depend on your, experience, your fitness, like how long are you going to be out there? But generally, what are you targeting for carbohydrate grams per hour? And usually there's a range. So it could be as low as maybe 40 grams per hour. Some athletes may shoot for, 90 grams per hour. Keep in mind, the more we put in, the more work that the digestive tract has to, go under as well. So we ask a lot of our stomach, small intestine, the whole shebang to consume high amounts. So just keep that in mind if you're tinkering right now with like, how much can I do? And so once you kind of figure out your range, and maybe I'll just say like 50 grams to 60 grams per hour, which would be about 200 to 240 calories per hour from carbohydrate. Like Kenton was saying, that's great to know, because you can pick some of that to come from the Skratch high carb mix. And that information is on the packet, right? So you can look and see if you're using the little single serving, that's about 50 grams of carbohydrate. Perfect. If you need a little bit more sodium, though, that's where the Skratch Sport Mix would come in. And you're also getting extra carbohydrate from that product. So you do have to keep in mind that, like, what's your priority? I need more carb, or I need a little more sodium to come into the mix, which is that important electrolyte for hydration. And so these products are not the same sodium wise. So remember, kind of as the name implies, the super high carb is going to give you more carb per serving than the sport hydration product that is giving you carbohydrate to help facilitate hydration, but it's also a sodium containing product. So all that to say, like, if you figure out your range of carbohydrate, kind of get a sweet spot for your sodium intake, but also keep in mind that you might be consuming the rice cakes or all the awesome food that the aid station is going to have at Wild Goose. And a lot of those foods will have salt in them. So it's not like you're going to do, for most athletes, right? You're not going to do 100 miles just on one product or two products. So you can kind of take breaks. I know I'm kind of going off on tangent here, but I wouldn't want you to overshoot or overconsume sodium if you're also getting it from, like the chips, pretzels, or the other yummy whole foods that Matty and the team will have at the aid station. So maybe I'll pause there because I don't want to go too far down rabbit hole.
That's awesome. No, I think the point to drive home is it's very individual. So
yeah,
somebody to figure it out and trial and error, and what works for somebody might not work for you. So, trying to figure that out. I'll throw this in before the next question, a pro tip. It works well for the mixing if you use like a Nalgene bottle or a shaker bottle. So I find it really hard to mix in the flasks, and it usually just ends up with me getting aggravated. So I use a shaker bottle or one of those plastic Nalgenes. You mix it up. It's easy to shake, and then you can dump it into the your flask. So Sarah Kool-Aid's got a question here. She says, I know it's possible to drink too much water. Yes, Dina, I just read your newsletter. But is it possible to drink too much electrolyte mix? If so, what would be the indicators of that during an ultra?
Yeah, it is possible. I mean, I think it's probably possible to do everything too much. But for electrolytes, one thing, so the few things to keep in mind, like how much sodium is in that electrolyte mix, or what are the other electrolytes? Because some products are marketed as electrolyte, but it may not have the most important one in sufficient quantities. For our purposes, like if we're talking about Skratch hydration or the Skratch chews or something like this, like there's electrolyte from sodium, it's excellent source. But if we were talking like a drink mix, like Skratch Sport hydration, or fill in the blank other product that's high in sodium or relatively high, and you're concentrating it or taking in too much, one sign would be a little nausea happening if we get too much sodium in at one time. So like people who take a good amount of broth and they're eating some other salty food and it's like all coming in really fast. Some people experience some nausea right away, and that's like an upper GI complaint or upper GI symptom. Diarrhea would be the other unfortunate, maybe lower GI problem. So if you're having like urgent, I got to hit the porta potty or the trees or whatever, that kind of scenario could be from too much electrolyte. Another sign could be like you're super thirsty. Sometimes that's dependent on the sodium or salt source that you've had, because there's differences there in thirst mechanism or thirst response. So those are a couple signs. I mean, that swelly, puffy feeling could also be in that mix of potential consequences. So none of them are great. And we
Dina,
hope.
what happens when your pacer poisons you with a vegan
Okay. All right.
nut?
Where's the mute button for Matt?
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess I'll throw this in there. But Sarah, if you do want to read more into it, it's hypo, and then I believe it's hypernatremia. Dina, I don't know if that's correct, but it's essentially imbalances in the amount of fluid that you have in your body. So I think hyper is you have too much sodium, and then hypo is you have too much water. And I know from experience that hyponatremia, which is too much water, it's extremely difficult to recover from and get all of that sodium back in your body once you're in a deficiency.
And I don't
going
think
to that rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty serious. I would just maybe offer a range of sodium for those who might be newer to ultra distance, or they're looking at, you're looking at your hydration products, is to think about sodium content per maybe half liter of water or 16 ounces of water. And a general pretty safe range for most people is like 300 to 500 milligrams of sodium. So if you take one of the Skratch Sport packets or a serving, that's 400 milligrams right in the middle. But if you're a pretty heavy sweater or you're a pretty salty sweater, you may need more, but always starting on the low end. And, drinking that fluid, not just taking the powder out of the packet, because we need the fluid to help with the absorption. So that 300 to 500 milligram range would be, like a good starting point for most people, where again, for most people, and I'm disclaimer there, would work and not put you in an excessive range.
Awesome. Well, we started to talk a little bit, you alluded to some GI issues. I'm curious, what are some strategies people can use, say if the GI monster starts to creep in at the wild goose, maybe some nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Is there any quick fixes for this during an ultra?
Well, I'll give my 2 cents and everyone can pitch in, but common advice is slowing down, taking a break, let your heart rate come down, calm ourselves as best as possible, which is easy to say right now when we're not in the scenario. But just letting nervous system and like heart rate come down, that helps blood flow. I mean, you can do things like put music on and all that woo-woo good stuff like that. Definitely taking a break from food, because we don't want to put more stuff in if we're having, especially vomiting or the diarrhea thing, maybe little sips of water or a little sip of electrolyte that doesn't have too much other stuff in it. And just like wait it out, don't give up, and kind of let system kind of restabilize. I'm not a huge fan of like forcing vomiting or any of that kind of deal. But I know some people opt for that. It's kind of a personal decision, I guess. But things like ginger chews or peppermint, even just smelling that kind of thing can kind of help reset. I don't know if it's wiring in the brain or all the mechanisms, but those are a couple strategies.
Yeah, and I mentioned this to you guys in the other Q&A, just to remember that you have, if you're signed up for the 100, you have a lot of time. You have 36 hours. So And we only have that one cutoff at mile 93 or so. So if you're experiencing some issues, whether it's GI or maybe, I don't know, something starting to ache, you have the time to slow down, take a break, and don't be afraid to ask volunteers. All of us are going to be at the Wild Goose, and we are eager to assist. So don't be shy in asking for help.
Yeah, I always say don't make a permanent decision based on a temporary problem, right? That happens so many times out there, and I've done it myself. So I'm putting it out there, but I've fallen victim to my own twisted thinking. Normally, if you sit and just kind of regather and regroup, you'll be okay, and you can get back out there. So, like Kim said, there's plenty of help out there. You got to just put your hand up and go for it,
Yes. Awesome. This was a great question that just came in the chat for Peter. What is the thinking on incorporating ketone aid usage during your ultra?
Yeah, ketone aid is one of the products on the market that is marketed as like a fourth fuel or this extra fuel your body could use or your brain might use. So it's an exogenous ketone source. I can't remember the exact details of that product because there's quite a few these days. But I'll say potential application for using it during an ultra would be when you're starting to get really tired or like sleep deprived, and you've been up for 28 hours and you still have a few more hours left to finish the race or whatever that threshold is for you. Somewhat anecdotal, there's a little bit of research, but like like the military services product like this are used for sleep deprivation. So it's not giving you calories per se, but it's giving you a substance or a substrate that your brain can use, and it can enhance your focus, maybe give you a little bit more sense of cognition, like heightened cognition, and keep you alert. But it's not going to give you it, for the most part, won't give you an energy boost like carbohydrate from the aid station food or the rice cakes or whatever else. So there may be some other use like for recovery, but some of the research is pretty mixed. So I'd say it'd be something, if you are considering it, to definitely practice that one in your longest training runs, because the taste of these products is not super awesome.
I was gonna say, I've only tried it one time with you. Took a sip and it was like disgusting.
That's what I was going to say. The taste will wake you right up.
Yeah,
that's
that's
true.
that is true. It definitely woke me up. Tastes a little bit like gasoline. Not that I've tasted gasoline, but that was the effect. Cool. I know there's another quick question. This is a great question. I don't know the answer to this. Maria's asking, can Skratch super high carb and Skratch hydration be frozen if you have leftover bottles? Will the nutrition be compromised?
That's a good question. I have frozen sports hydration mix. Depending on how much sodium you have in there, it can take sometimes a little bit longer to freeze. Super high carb though, keeping it in the freezer, at least for me overnight, I've only gotten it to a slushy consistency. I haven't gotten it fully frozen before. I don't know if that's the makeup of the clusterdextrin in there or the combination of the sugar and the sodium, but I've never gotten it fully frozen before. To my knowledge, it does not do anything to the nutrition. I don't know if Dina has anything to add to that, but yeah, I've just heard 2 days max. Having that stuff sitting in a bottle is, especially the high carb, is what you want to, try to stay within. Don't go beyond that.
Yeah, I don't think the nutrition value will be compromised.
What about Skratch snow cones?
That's that's a good idea. I mean, I saw somebody throw you had watermelon at the aid station. I saw someone throw a couple scoops of salted margarita everyday mix on there. So that was a big hit, but yeah.
Kenton, you know what I thought of when I was driving home? Pickle juice in the snow cone. I bet you people would eat that. We're gonna have to try that. Maybe thunder chicken, the leftover pickle juice. All right, let's do one more for Dina, and then we'll move on to the aid station.
You got a hand up in there, I think.
Oh, a hand. Okay. Is that
No, I was clapping for pickle juice.
all right? Felicia's about it too. I'd be all over pickle juice snow cone. I think we're gonna have to try that. We're gonna put that on the list, Kenton.
Yeah.
Under chicken. The last question that was submitted during registration for Dina is, what are good substitutes for salt for those of us on mandatory low salt diets?
Yeah, this is a little tricky one, and I don't know how to pronounce your name. Shauna, thank you. Because there really isn't a substitute, like for use during exercise training racing, there really isn't a substitute for salt to perform what we're looking for from sodium. Like for daily use, if you're salting your food, we use like a potassium chloride, but I wouldn't recommend that at all during an endurance event like this. So I'd want to work with you or like communicate with you, like, is the low salt because of blood pressure or what reasons? And then like if you're sweaty, how sweaty are you? Because we don't want to go too low on your salt intake or sodium intake during.
It's due to a kidney condition. So
I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
it's due to a kidney issue.
Okay. Yeah, this is a little bit more, I'm not trying to bail, but this is a little bit more complex, like
Fair.
medical kind of thing. And so I'd be happy to communicate with you via email or a quick call or something.
Awesome. All right, Dina, thank you very much for nutrition hydration info. We're going to move along to the aid station, and Ket and Dina chime in as we go into this. Matty hopped on the call a little bit late, so a little intro on Matt. He's our aid station captain for Wild Goose Trail Festival, as well as the Squatchy Leftovers. He's been captaining that aid station for a couple years. So he'll be at the helm with Dougie Wilson, and Triple Crown Bob. So these three,
and hopefully Kenton will be making his cheese tacos again.
Those are coming back. The combined experience of those three guys is well over, I think, 200 milers between the three of them. So they have a lot of experience on the trail. And to be honest, the aid station for the Wild Goose is pretty much a 200 miler aid station. It's extra. So, Matt, why don't you, before we take questions, tell us about the aid station for Wild Goose and your setup, what's going on, fill us in.
I think the aid station, the only limitation is Kimmy keep telling me like to pull back a little bit because we want to make it a full 5-star dining experience for our runners. No, we're really excited to come back. Somewhere along the line, I think I've signed a 25-year contract to run this aid station. So
you did. It was signed in blood. You're locked in.
Every year we're going to look to improve upon the last, but we understand the importance of the aid station and the awesome volunteers that are involved with helping the runners get to the goals that they're putting out there for themselves. So we have everything from the pickle juice to the pierogies to the pulled pork quesadillas. We're going to have a couple pizza ovens going this year for those that close out their ultra distance races. And everything in between. Pancake, we cater to the time of day as well. So, if you got a hankering from some pancakes as the sun's coming up on that second day, we're there to help you. We also don't want to put stuff out there that we know kind of just sits in a pan. So we try to keep it as hot and fresh for you guys as possible, because we know the value of a warm pancake when when all the to chase away all the evil spirits of that night. So we are there to help and support as best we can. And if you guys have some suggestions and things that you're looking to have, we could also do that as well.
Awesome. Well, Maria just dropped in the chat. She was there last year. She said there was always plenty of food available and the food was hot. Greatly appreciated. Some races there's little left or it's cold by the time you get there. And I've definitely experienced that. It's not very fun to come into soggy burritos at an aid station.
We try to treat it like, if you've ever been to the Magic Kingdom, it's always like the first day. So we understand people are coming out and we want to make, we want you guys to have the best race possible, far be it for, a bummer of an aid station to take your race down. We know, at any given moment, any little bit of help and nutrition is going to get you to where you got to go. So that's kind of how we treat the aid station, knowing from experience, rolling into an aid station, not having something that you were looking for, or like you said, something that's just not up to snuff. That could kind of put you in a little bit of more of a negative spin. We want to bring people out of any negative thoughts, and the best way to do that is with happy little tasty morsels for your bellies, right, Dina? I think it would be Dina approved as well, what we do.
Yes, and I'm actually going to be there this year, so I cannot wait to observe or help or whatever. But yeah, you guys do the best with
Very excited about that.
everything. So
plenty of food. What do we have? Any questions in the chat? We will have some French fries. Of course, there will be French fries. Hot and tasty, salted just right.
The French fries, honestly, I think the volunteers ate the French fries faster than the runners were able to get them.
It's a fine balance there. And if you recall, last year there was a bit of rain. Some weather came in at some point. So, we worked especially hard keeping things hot. And of course, there's super soups and there's all sorts of options, vegetarian options, vegan options. We want to make sure that there's something for everybody. Yeah. And it's quite funny. It's quite funny because there's always a little bit of a battle for who's on the grill. There's plenty of hands that want to get on the grill, which is a great thing.
I forgot about the super soup. What is in the super soup?
Super soup last year we had it was like a variation on a ramen soup. And we made sure that it was hot at all times. You weren't coming in any lukewarm. But it had just the right salt, just the right amount of noodles to it. So it was quite nice.
Matt, will you be able to accommodate eggplant parmesan? That was just dropped in the chat.
Well, it depends on the distance that Peter's looking to take on. We could probably work something out on the side.
Eggplant parm. Yeah, and filet mignon as well.
Peter, I could have an eggplant parm for you at the finish. How's that sound?
I think that's fair. And Sarah wants one without cheese. So eggplant parm, hold the cheese.
So now I know a couple runners. Sarah, I'll have one without cheese for you at the finish.
When you get your belt to put on.
Make sure you bring a pair of pants that has belt loops this time.
Belt loops. All right. Well, a couple questions that were submitted ahead of time. We've got this from Joe Conroy. Will you be bringing back the awesome pork quesadillas?
We are, and we're going to double the recipe this year to bring twice as much because they were a bit of a hit.
Those you couldn't keep those on the shelves either. Those are flying off.
We couldn't, and I have a smoker here at home. Those things are smoked low and slow for many, many hours. They come out just right, and it's a nice little treat. Knowing myself, you kind of get sick of the same old sort of food. So I like to have a little something special, to give you a little pop. Sometimes for me, just getting to the next aid station and knowing that there'll be a treat is quite nice and motivation enough sometimes. Every little thing helps when you're coming up on these distances.
Totally. And I know something you guys were trying to do as well is if runners came in and they had a request, you were able to do that. They went out on a loop, say, hey, I'd love to get a burger the next time around. So just keep that in mind if you're out there for the event for the Wild Goose. You can make some requests.
We'd like to do that, and maybe we can figure out some sort of walkie-talkie scenario where, you know, if you're out 2 miles out, you could call it in. Those are some things that we see on some of these other races. Now, Kimmy's probably just, her heart's beating a little fast right now. She's like, I don't know if we have the infrastructure for that. But I like
I'm basically thinking logistics.
I like putting things out there and then working backwards on how to get it done.
I know you do. Oh, here's a question. I mean, this is going to be a long list. You kind of mentioned a few of them, but what hot food items are you going to have? This is a big list, but maybe you can name a few of them.
I mean, we're still working through on the list, and you know, I know myself and Doug and Bob, we want to keep it interesting also. So there's going to be, you know, there'll be pierogies, there'll be the hot soups, a couple different variations of it. There'll be the pulled pork quesadillas, there'll be regular quesadillas, there'll be French fries. You know, I was thinking about some tater tots. Loaded tater tots might be a nice little thing. So those are some of the things that we'll have. We'll also have plenty of bacon. I don't know how many dozens of eggs we went through last year. Quite a lot, you know, so you got your pancakes, you got your French toast, you got your bacon, egg, and cheese. You know, you got all these things out there. So there's going to be plenty of variation on the food. Like I said, we don't have a set list yet, but if there is something that, you know, tickles your fancy, we might be able to accommodate it, like a chicken parm, providing you finish.
Eggplant.
We'll also have pizzas, like I said. We're gonna have a couple pizza ovens. We're excited about that. That's something that we're taking away from some of these 200s. They've had pizza ovens at the finish for folks, and that is a really nice little pop at the end, along with you know, a belt buckle. So
yeah, and you know, when I was at Tahoe this year, we worked an aid station. It was fun. The pizza oven it cooked everything really fast. So to have 3 of them, we're going to be cranking out.
Yeah, it was funny. Just a side story. We run in Tahoe 5-6 weeks ago. I came into an aid station 31 miles in, and you know, I had to kind of beg Kimmy to come and help me because she was on the grill, and she was having such fun on the grill.
Oh yeah.
Normally, as a race director, you don't get an opportunity to get on the grill, but you were having a ball, it looked like.
Oh, I couldn't get enough of it. I think I cooked like 200 burgers.
Yeah.
That was one thing. I was surprised how many burgers we went through last year. I remember we had to go out and buy more burgers. That was definitely a popular item that we had at the aid station.
We did. It was. Yep.
Here's a question. Well, maybe this will be the last one. If I'm coming to the race solo, will I be able to get help from the aid station throughout the race?
And what is that, a pre-submitted, or did that just come in?
Pre-submitted.
Yeah, I mean, help will come. You know, we're there to help. Period. End of story. Right. So, and we're cooking food and we're preparing stuff for you guys, but I mean, last year I threw a backpack on and ran the last 14 miles with somebody to get him to the finish in the rain, you know? So I don't think it's a far cry. We're all chomping at the bit as well. So there'll be opportunity for us to get out there and help folks. There's going to be, Thor is going to be on hand, and she is, you know, Thor's medical touch got me through my last race. You know, she worked on my feet 3 different times over the 200. And, you know, without that help, I probably would have had a very different finish. So yes, there will be help. There will be support. You know, you got to run the miles, but we'll do everything we can to get you to the finish, whether it's food aid, medical aid, or some support, you know, i.e. pacing or something like that. Absolutely.
Yeah,
this is why I love the community so much, and I see Kenton and Dina also shaking their heads. You know, we want everybody to be successful at whatever they're looking to do. So that's the name of the game. We're out there to help everybody finish whatever distance it is that they are challenging themselves with. That's it. Period. End of story. And however that help comes, we're there to dispense as best we can.
Totally. And if you all have any doubt about the aid station, I'd just throw out the example of last year where it was literally tropical storm and these guys are cooking out food for 36 hours straight. I mean, it was really impressive to watch these guys. And we had volunteers come throughout 36 hours, taking turns. Everybody was pitching in, but it was really impressive to watch, to be honest.
It's a lot of fun. And you know, we want to do better, right? So that's what we're excited about, to come out and do it even better than we did last year. Maybe the weather will cooperate this year.
Maybe.
It is what it is though, right, guys? Get out
That's
there
right.
and that's why you train in the rain.
That's right. You go out in the nasty weather to prep for it.
Yep.
Felicia, we'll finish with this. She said, are there pacers at the race if we'd like some company for a night lap? Just curious, traveling a bit to get there and won't have much of a crew. I do want to mention that we just launched a shared spreadsheet. I got to put the link on the Wild Goose page, but it's called our Pacer Matchmaker. So if you are in need of a pacer, put your info on there. If you are listening and you want to do some pacing, or if you have some friends who want to be available, we can match you up. So put your info on there. It's a shared spreadsheet, and hopefully we can make some connections, because there definitely are a lot of people who are coming solo, or maybe their family is coming with them and the family is not interested in getting on trail. So we want to hook you up with some pacers who would be willing to do that. So do you guys have anything to add before we sign off here? Dina, Kenton, Matty?
Dina first.
Oh, well, let's see. I would add, I mean, whoever's here now or you're listening to this later, I mean, kudos to you for having interest in your hydration, nutrition, thinking about all this stuff well in advance. That will not serve you wrong to be, practicing and thinking about all this stuff and planning as much as you can without trying to obsess or anything. So I just thought I'd give that kind of words of encouragement.
Kenton, what do you got? Any parting words for the people?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot that goes into running long distances, but I think everything, especially with how complicated humans are and running is, I think it can all just be broken down into. Alan always says this. He goes, if you're in a bad place in any endurance event, you just have to halt, HALT. And it's, are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Or are you tired? And I think those are kind of like those main four things that you can break down and really narrow it in to see, which area that you're struggling in. And, a lot of people that are going out and doing the 100, you're going to have a good amount of time to yourself. So I think that's another thing that the aid station can contribute, is just like that human interaction, just to kind of, whether it is to wake you up or, kind of get you out of a hole. So be vocal, tell us what you need, and, remember to smile and have a good time out there.
Wait, Ken, can you say that acronym again? I feel like I need to make that on a sign and put it at the aid station. That was gold. What
Oh,
is
yeah,
it?
yeah. It's HALT, HALT. Are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Or are you tired? And those are, Alan always says, humans are really complicated, but you can usually break it down into those four categories. And it's like you're talking to a little kid, It's like when a kid's crying, it's probably because he's hungry.
And you do transform into a toddler a
Yeah.
lot of times during 100. So that's awesome. All right, Matty, what do you got to close us out?
I don't have much to add to that. All great information. All I can say is that we're there to help. You got any questions between now and then, throw them somewhere. Put them on the webpage, put them in on social. We'll do our best to answer. You reach out to any of us separately, we'll come back to you. We want everybody to succeed. That is the name of the game, and we are all in this together. It's awesome. I can't wait.
It's going to be Skratch-tastic.
And it's a lot of fun. It is so much fun. It's fun for us. We're going to have a blast. These guys are going to have a blast. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we keep getting closer and closer, and the stoke is building for
Coming quick. It's coming quick.
Coming really quick. So I'll give a plug, I think, for both Skratch and Dina. If you need some nutrition services, we're getting a little tight in the timeline, but You can reach out to Dina. Her website is nutritionmechanic.com. Her email's on there. And for checking out Skratch products, you get that 20% discount with Sasquatch, so scratchlabs.com. And Dina also extends a really nice discount for Sasquatters. So, all right. Well, thank you guys for joining us tonight. This was awesome. And we will catch you out on the trail sometime soon.